Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. Let's jump right into the material you sent over. We're looking at some, well, pretty significant changes to the Texas Penal Code from the 88th Legislature.
That's right. And our focus really is to unpack the main amendments and the new offenses that these sources are highlighting.
Hmm.
It seems geared towards tackling some big public safety issues.
Yeah, especially around fentanyl, it looks like.
Exactly. Fentanyl is definitely front and center here.
And, looking through this, House Bill 6 seems to be the driver for a lot of it. It's really strengthening the laws, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. HB 6 introduces some major shifts. We're talking much tougher penalties and even, a brand new murder offense tied specifically to fentanyl.
Okay, let's start there. A new murder offense. How does that work according to the sources?
Right. So the big one in HB 6 is this new murder charge. Essentially, if someone gives fentanyl or, something containing fentanyl to someone else,
Okay.
and that person uses it, injects it, swallows it, breathes it in, whatever, and they die as a result, the person who provided the substance can now actually be charged with murder.
Wow. So just the act of supplying it, if it leads to a death, that jumps straight to a murder charge.
That's the change, yeah. It creates a much more direct legal line, you could say,
Mhm.
between the supply and the death. It really elevates the culpability.
Yeah. That's a fundamental shift in how distribution is treated legally if there's a fatal outcome.
It definitely is. A much higher level of legal responsibility for the supplier
Yeah.
than we saw before this bill.
Okay. Wow. All right. So shifting slightly, the sources also mention increased penalties just for making or delivering fentanyl, even without a death involved. What's changed there?
Yeah, that's another key part of HB 6. The main thing is they've lowered the quantity threshold,
Lower the thresholds.
meaning
Okay.
smaller amounts of fentanyl now trigger more serious felony charges. You don't need as much of the drug to be facing, really significant prison time.
Right. Okay. Can you give us an example from the sources, like how the weights work now?
Sure. So one example that stands out is manufacturing or delivering, say, 4 grams or more, but less than 200 grams of a substance with fentanyl in it.
Okay, 4 to less than 200 grams.
Right. Before, that might have been a lower felony.
Right.
Now, under HB 6, that specific range is classified as a first-degree felony.
A first-degree felony for as little as 4 grams. And what kind of penalty does that carry now?
Well, for that range 4, up to 200 grams, you're looking at potential prison time of 15 years,
Yeah.
all the way up to 99 years, or even life, plus potentially a huge fine, like up to $250,000.
15 years minimum potential?
For that range, yes. And if you get to 200 grams or more, the minimum jumps even higher, to 25 years. It's serious.
So the risk involved, even with what might seem like smaller amounts, has just skyrocketed.
Exactly. It seems like a very clear message targeting the distribution side, trying to impose much tougher consequences further down the supply chain than maybe was the case before.
Okay. And there was one other thing I noticed mentioned in the sources, something about death certificates. Seemed a bit different.
Ah, yes. That's another specific piece of HB 6. It mandates that if fentanyl is found to be the cause, or even just a contributing factor, in someone's death,
Yeah.
it has to be listed explicitly on the official death certificate now.
Huh. And why add that requirement? What's the thinking there?
The stated goal, according to the sources, is really about data, better data collection.
Okay.
By making sure fentanyl deaths are clearly marked, the idea is to get a much more accurate picture of, how widespread the problem is and the real impact of the fentanyl crisis in Texas.
Right, to track it properly. Okay, so let's quickly recap the main points your sources cover. First, there's this major new murder charge if supplying fentanyl leads to death. Huge deal.
Yep, elevates culpability significantly.
Then, tougher penalties for making or delivering it, even smaller amounts, like that 4-gram threshold kicking you into a first-degree felony with potentially 15 years to life.
Right, much lower quantities triggering much higher penalty ranges.
And finally, this new rule about listing fentanyl specifically on death certificates for better tracking.
Exactly. So understanding these specific changes really gives you, the listener, a sense of the state's, intensified legal approach to the fentanyl issue and just how seriously these offenses are now viewed.
Yeah, it's a pretty stark set of changes laid out here.
Yeah, it really is. And, thinking about that last point, the death certificate data,
Mhm.
it raises an interesting question, something for you to think about. If this effort works, if they do get much better data on fentanyl deaths,
Mm.
what might that improved information actually reveal down the line? What new insights could emerge, and how might that shape future responses to the crisis?